Amid the glowing lights of Las Vegas within the sparkling Legends Arena, two of cinema's most prominent personalities were set to face off against actual truth. What started as a glamorous event filled with celebrity and reminiscence grew strained, as Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, the understated experts in genuine fighting skills, settled into their spots without speaking. Arnold Schwarzenegger went beyond being a standard performer who became a legend. Across more than 50 years, he ruled in muscle building, movies, and government roles. And Sylvester Stallone stood out as more than a regular attendee. Over 5 decades, he embodied on-screen toughness, a film fighter who converted hardship into massive earnings. Yet when Arnold and Sylvester ridiculed the classic combat specialists before an enthusiastic audience, they accidentally sparked a confrontation that no one could stage, revise, or simulate. As Norris stood up from his seat, and Seagal joined him silently, the vibe altered. Recording devices captured it all. But the events that followed weren't an act. They involved accuracy, principles, and correction presented as kindness. What originated as a premier evening gimmick evolved into a profound awakening, a clash of self-importance and expertise, deception and fact. And once the evening concluded, the Legends Arena would forever change, since for the initial occasion, everyone witnessed the outcome when film's toughest figures entered the realm of authentic power. Prior to continuing, share your location with us, and if this tale resonates with you, ensure you've joined our channel, as I've prepared a unique treat for you tomorrow. The evening sky over Las Vegas shone with beams that sliced bright paths through the night, all focusing on the shining new Legends Arena. Its contemporary glass exterior mirrored the vibrant hues of the boulevard, while indoors crimson fabric and sleek metal formed a setting that blended film debut glamour with ancient battleground intensity. Dana Voss positioned herself at the heart of everything, examining her project with keen vision that overlooked no detail. 5 minutes until the introductory address, her aide murmured, gliding by with a digital device. Dana acknowledged it, adjusting her custom jacket's edges. At age 45, she held herself with the assurance of an individual who had constructed a vast enterprise from nothing. The Legends Arena represented her crowning achievement, a location where fighting competitions and showbiz would merge in a display unmatched in the city's history. "What's the crowd size?" she inquired, although she was aware of the response. All tickets vanished shortly after revealing the celebrity-packed launch. "No room left. We're refusing entry." Dana permitted a brief grin before resuming her composed demeanor. Achievement wasn't judged by revenue from admissions. It came from experiences that lingered in memory. This evening required indelibility. The elite area buzzed with motion as stars appeared in groups, every arrival sparking flashes and whispers. Dana observed them with trained detachment until a unique chuckle pierced the background sounds. Robust, assured, recognizable, Arnold Schwarzenegger had shown up. The ex-leader of California navigated the gathering with the effortless appeal of a person used to commanding any space. At 77, his build stayed formidable, not the sculpted, ideal from his competition era, but retaining an essence of raw might. Next to him strode Sylvester Stallone, sturdy and intent at 78, his aged features easing into a hesitant grin as Arnold placed a large palm on his back. "Check out this venue, Sly." Arnold's tone resonated, his dialect as bold and unique as always. "Similar to an ancient Roman stadium, but with superior illumination." "Yeah." Stallone agreed, his gaze scanning the design with the focus of a person who spots elements others ignore. "Pretty good," he conceded, which counted as strong approval from him. Dana neared, offering her palm. "Governor, Mr. Stallone, your presence is vital to this debut." Arnold enveloped her hand. "Dana, the key figure tonight. You've created an extraordinary setup." "Remarkable," Stallone contributed, his grip solid yet concise. "Your places are right up front," Dana indicated, pointing to the custom fight zone that commanded the primary space. Distinct from a standard ring for boxing or cage for mixed arts, the Legends Arena included a rounded surface with unique padding suited for displays instead of official matches. "We have an impressive lineup ready." "I anticipate excellence," Arnold remarked, then dropped his volume in a secretive manner. But the genuine performance involves the attendees, right? Who else is attending this evening? Dana grinned formally. Only top names. We've secured. Her statement paused as she detected a faint change in the area's mood. By the eastern doorway, without pomp or companions, Chuck Norris had arrived. At 84, he proceeded with the restrained effectiveness of someone who avoided excess action. His beard, formerly auburn, now pale gray, outlined a countenance that disclosed minimal. Beside him proceeded Steven Seagal, 73, his dark attire and tied-back hair giving the sense of a figure detached from eras, unlike the surge of notice that trailed Arnold and Stallone. Norris and Seagal appeared to generate a zone of calm nearby. No boisterous welcomes, no staged shows of fellowship. They responded to approaches with courteous gestures but continued to their assigned locations. Arnold commented, tracking Dana's view. The rivals are here. Dana faced him again, her look deliberately even. Rivals? Arnold chuckled. Admit it, Dana. 2 eras of film heroes in one spot. It's on everyone's mind. We're simply present to back the event, Stallone stated. But his gaze had tightened a bit as he observed Norris and Seagal settle in. Dana sensed the initial hint of discomfort. She had extended invitations to these 4 icons on purpose, aiming for positive exposure and maybe some warm reflections on action cinema's peak times. But the subtle strain in Arnold's speech hinted at another dynamic. Gentlemen, pardon me, she stated evenly. I must get ready for the greeting. Enjoy the gathering. As she departed, she caught Arnold's voice once more. Stronger now, obviously intended to reach farther. You realize, Sly, you and I have defeated more villains in films than anyone else ever. Stallone's answer was too soft to catch, but Dana didn't require it. The idea had taken root. The formal bell sounded, marking 10 minutes to the main ceremony. Visitors started heading to their chairs as Dana positioned behind the stage drape. From this spot, she could view Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal in their prominent positions, conversing softly. Chuck maintained ideal alignment, palms placed gently on his legs. Nothing about him indicated an elderly individual. The self-control that shaped his existence appeared to have safeguarded a core aspect of him. Next to him, Seagal held a comparable quietude, though his was more sealed, less inviting. They weren't acting, Dana understood. They were merely there. On the opposite side, Arnold and Stallone had drawn a group of fans. Arnold shared an anecdote, his limbs waving broadly, his features lively. Periodically, he would tense faintly, a subconscious routine from years of displaying his form. Stallone rested against the edge, his classic partial grin emerging with each crowd chuckle, but his attention kept shifting to Norris and Seagal. 2 separate realms, Dana reflected. 2 distinct views on strength's essence. The interior illumination lowered, and Dana emerged to loud cheers. Flashes formed an ocean of brightness as she neared the speaker at the core. Ladies and gentlemen, she started, her words echoing through the venue. Welcome to the inaugural event at Legends Arena. The gathering shouted its endorsement, the noise surging over her like a tangible wave. This evening signals the start of a fresh phase in amusement, a site where top competitors from various fields can exhibit their abilities, a tribute to power, commitment, and the unbreakable human essence. She motioned to the surrounding space. This isn't merely another location. It's where icons are honored and fresh icons emerge. The beam moved, highlighting the elite area, and on the topic of icons, we're privileged to host 4 figures who shaped a period of adventure films. The audience's eagerness was tangible as the lens swept over the 4 individuals: Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, Chuck Norris, Steven Seagal. The spectators burst out, devices rising all over to record the instance. On the huge displays overhead, the lens switched between detailed views of each face. Arnold smiled widely and gestured with both arms. Stallone agreed with a nod, lifting a clenched hand in his famous Rocky gesture. Norris grinned courteously, tilting his head. Seagal stayed unexpressive, noting the occasion with just a minor gesture. These individuals didn't only amuse us, Dana went on. They motivated us. They illustrated varied routes to power, varied interpretations of might. The group quieted as she delivered her scripted comments on the venue's upcoming activities and goals. But the environment had evolved. She detected it during her talk. The mild spark of competition, the implicit query lingering in the atmosphere. Which of these figures was genuinely the most powerful? As she wrapped her address and the planned demo matches started, Dana observed from the edges. The sample contests were striking. Olympic grapplers, MMA title holders, top boxers, each presenting the peak of their craft. But she saw that numerous gazes in the crowd repeatedly returned to the four icons in the elite zone. During breaks, she approached Arnold and Stallone. "Are you enjoying the presentation, gentlemen?" "Outstanding setup," Stallone remarked. His director. "Perspective clear." Arnold agreed vigorously. "Excellent competitors, strong vibe, but do you know what would thrill everyone?" He drew nearer. Something improvised, something authentic. Dana's composed grin held firm, though warning sounded internally. "Tonight's elements are precisely arranged, Governor. That's how we guarantee security and excellence." Naturally, Arnold responded, dismissing her worry. "But life's top instances aren't planned. They're impromptu." He glanced pointedly at Norris and Seagal. "I'm merely noting it would stick in memory eternally." Before Dana could answer, loud cheers marked the close of another demo. The venue's lights brightened a little for the break. Arnold rose abruptly, his commanding form attracting every look. "I believe I'll walk around," he declared. "Perhaps greet some former associates." Dana watched, unable to step in without causing a stir as Arnold circled the venue's boundary toward Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal. Stallone paused briefly, then trailed, torn between hesitation and support. As they drew near, Norris stood to meet them, his actions smooth and sparing. Seagal stayed seated, watching with veiled eyes. "Chuck, Steven," Arnold's words echoed through the space. Reminiscent of past days, right? The quartet of action film's writers. Lenses turned swiftly, preserving the scene. Dana paused her breath, observing as the early signs of an approaching tempest started to build. Under the venue's manufactured glow, encircled by the hum of multitudes, four icons faced each other. Two lifted by charm and flair, two anchored in quiet restraint. The impact was moments away. The pause tunes diminished, overtaken by the general buzz of talk. Close to the front, four film legends formed a loose group, their gathering pulling mobile lenses like insects to brightness. Dana Voss hurried through the assembly, offering formal smiles to visitors while her thoughts plotted ways to manage potential issues. "You two appear fit," Arnold stated as she arrived, his pitch designed to extend. "Still practicing, Chuck, Steven?" Chuck Norris inclined his head, a mild grin easing his seasoned traits, daily without pause. "Discipline forms a lifestyle, not a passing phase," Seagal contributed, his initial remarks that night holding a gravity that hushed surrounding discussions. "Us too," Arnold remarked, tapping his broad torso. "Varied but equivalent. The physique is sacred." "Yeah." Stallone positioned a bit aside, arms pocketed, observing the exchange with cautious looks. Dana identified his demeanor, the evaluating stare of a person composing lines on the spot, gauging the scenario's promise before engaging. "Your demo matches are notable," Norris told Dana, polite yet straightforward. "Actual talent shown." "Appreciate it," she answered. "We prioritize genuineness most. These are true experts in their areas." "Genuine indeed," Arnold inserted, "but also secure, restricted." His grin broadened as attention shifted in adjacent areas, chats quieting as folks detected an event developing. "Occasionally I ponder what crowds would offer for an entirely surprising sight." Dana advanced. "Governor," but Arnold was already acting. Decades of leading gatherings directing him instinctively to the closest speaker setup. A worker, confusing him for an intended presenter, enabled it with agreement. The audio activated with a snap, and Arnold's words thundered through the venue. "Ladies and gentlemen, quite an evening, eh?" The assembly shouted back, the mood changing right away. Arnold Schwarzenegger wasn't simply a celebrity. He was a natural power, able to shape environments through pure magnetism. "I was engaging in a fascinating discussion with my close companions here." He motioned widely toward Stallone, Norris, and Seagal, and a wild, unplanned idea struck me. Dana headed to the audio station, gesturing urgently, but the opportunity had passed. The spectators were already inclined ahead, countless expressions bright with expectation. We possess two varied eras of adventure protagonists, indeed two distinct methods. Arnold's smile expanded. On this side, Sly and myself, we forged our paths on exceeding normal scale. The build, the blast, the catchphrases, yeah. He posed dramatically, eliciting approving chuckles. And opposite, we featured Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, authentic combat experts who carried their abilities to films. The assembly's sound grew as realization spread. Stallone had shifted to Arnold's flank, his look indecipherable. Norris and Seagal held their places, observing with steady focus. So I'm considering, what if we provide these folks a unique treat? A singular display? Arnold's tone lowered theatrically. Cinema against actuality. Screen idols versus actual combatants. Merely a cordial showcase, naturally. The venue exploded. Devices rose everywhere. Online platforms overflowing with instant shares. Shouts emerged in isolated spots. Go for it, go for it. Rapidly expanding until they combined into an overwhelming surge. Dana arrived at the audio worker, who hesitantly deactivated Arnold's speaker under her direction. But the harm was complete. The venue had shifted from structured presentation to wild vigor, all centered on the 4 icons now featured on the primary displays. "Are you out of your mind?" she whispered, arriving at Arnold's side. "This isn't the plan. You can't simply—" "I already have," Arnold answered, his grin steady. "And see, they're thrilled." Truly, the assembly had reached a peak. The shouts persisted, accented by pounding steps and resounding cheers. The intended demo combatants lingered uncomfortably at the borders, overlooked amid this sudden shift. Stallone drew close, his words soft so only Dana and Arnold heard. "This is excessive. We're not combatants, Arnie." "Represent yourself," Arnold rebutted. "I've prepared for half a century. Plus, it's only a showcase, not an actual battle for amusement." Dana pivoted urgently to Norris and Seagal, seeking rationality. But Chuck's demeanor made her hesitate. No fury there, no outrage at Arnold's assumption, just a serene evaluation, like confronting a riddle needing resolution instead of an affront requiring reply. "Mr. Norris," she initiated, "please realize this isn't approved or arranged." "We couldn't conceivably." "It's fine, Miss Voss," Chuck stated softly, his tone holding a command that quieted her instantly. Certain teachings demand direct involvement. The enigmatic answer chilled Dana. She faced Seagal, whose blank demeanor showed nothing. "This is an error," she stressed. "Maybe," Seagal responded with a light shrug, "but not one for us to create or halt." Dana's protection crew had established a boundary unclear on next steps. The arranged schedule had essentially fallen apart. The assembly's focus rested entirely on the emerging situation. Dana's device vibrated repeatedly as leaders and backers sought reports. Arnold, always the entertainer, had obtained another speaker. "What do you think, Chuck?" Steven, simply a cordial showcase. 4 icons offering fans a lasting memory. No self-importance, no victors or defeated, just a presentation of varied approaches. The venue grew quiet as attention fixed on Norris. At 84, his stance stayed flawless, his steps intentional as he advanced. Battling for amusement isn't battling. It's enactment. He halted, gaze shifting from Arnold to the crowd and back. But enactment can uncover reality. Preparing and sharing this narrative required considerable effort from us. So if it's appealing to you, join our channel. It supports us greatly. Now resuming the narrative. The assembly burst out once more, taking his statement as approval. Seagal advanced to Chuck's flank, his demeanor still blank but his stance firm, unyielding. Stallone clutched Arnold's limb. "Consider your actions," he whispered. "These aren't performers. They're authentic." A brief doubt appeared in Arnold's gaze, swiftly overtaken by firm resolve. "We are too, Sly. We've worked with top experts. We've handled our own actions. We've driven our forms past expected limits for lenses," Stallone pressed, "with planning and safeguards and retakes." But Arnold had already refaced the assembly, limbs elevated in success. "Tomorrow evening," he proclaimed, "right in this spot, a unique showcase contest. Schwarzenegger and Stallone against Norris and Seagal." Dana shut her eyes momentarily, years of meticulous organization crumbling around her. When she reopened them, she saw Chuck Norris observing her with a form of empathy. "Apologies," she murmured. "This wasn't my plan." "Rare conflicts are," he answered, then pivoted to exit, Seagal trailing wordlessly behind. As the update spread across the venue and into the broader sphere, Dana sensed the burden of certainty descend. Online networks detonated. Media teams dropped their set pieces and admission resellers started demanding tenfold the original cost for the next night. What commenced as an elegant venue debut had shifted into a frenzy, yet one destined to shatter all visitor records in the city's past. Arnold managed the assembly expertly, his resounding chuckle and sweeping motions converting the upcoming showcase into the year's most awaited occurrence. But as Dana noted Stallone's concerned look and the serene exit of Norris and Seagal, she identified the gathering storm. This extended beyond amusement. It had turned into a deeper matter, a meeting of beliefs and examination of legitimacy. The issue wasn't if the showcase would happen. That drive was now irreversible. The issue was what would persist after the turmoil cleared. In the venue's rear passages, distant from lenses and shouting masses, Stallone reached Norris and Seagal. "Chuck, Steven, hold on," he shouted, his words rebounding off solid surfaces. They halted, rotating with aligned accuracy that reflected endless hours of preparation. "This wasn't my concept," Stallone explained, palms outstretched. "You understand, Arnold, once a notion grips him." "We get it," Chuck responded plainly. Stallone passed a hand over his locks, irritation obvious. "Listen, we can devise a method to handle this. Keep it secure, planned. No need for anyone to face humiliation." Steven Seagal's gaze constricted faintly. "Is humiliation your worry, Sylvester?" The direct query lingered. Stallone, expert in tales of the disadvantage prevailing, abruptly lacked words. Chuck rested a palm on his back. "Arrogance precedes downfall. Sly, not my phrase. Proverbs 16:18. His gaze was compassionate yet steadfast. "The query is, whose arrogance do we mean?" He pressed once, then let go, proceeding along the passage with Seagal. Stallone observed their departure, the discomfort in his core intensifying. For the first instance since Arnold seized that speaker, Stallone faced the reality he'd evaded. They had committed a grave misstep. As Dana worked to reorganize the rest of the night's agenda, her device signaled a news update. She glanced and stiffened. The title already screamed on all key sources. Vegas confrontation. Film icons Schwarzenegger and Stallone dare Norris and Seagal. Below it, a secondary title finalized her distress. Cinema stars assert film preparation matches actual combat abilities. The challenge hadn't merely been issued. It had been transmitted worldwide. Dawn rays poured through the shades of Dana Voss's workspace, highlighting drifting particles and the disorder of strewn documents on her table. She hadn't departed the venue overnight. The prior night's sudden dare had released a flood of coordination, legal matters, and press inquiries needing prompt handling. Her workspace entrance swung wide as Ryan, her security chief, came in unannounced. "Admission platform failed," he declared, settling into the seat across her. "Overload. We're moving to a draw system or this location will falter tomorrow evening." Dana agreed tiredly. "What about releases coverage? Legal requires all four involved to endorse broader documents, essentially freeing us if they harm one another." He swept a hand across his trimmed scalp. "Which incidentally is a legitimate risk." "They won't harm each other," Dana whispered, though doubt laced her words. "It's a display for spectacle." Ryan's doubtful look conveyed volumes. "You witnessed Norris and Seagal yesterday. That wasn't spectacle vibe. Any contact from them today?" "Zero from Chuck or Steven. Schwarzenegger's team has contacted half a dozen times. He desires fireworks for his arrival." Dana sealed her eyes, rubbing her forehead. "Naturally he does." The desk device rang, the secure connection. She grabbed it. "Dana Voss. Miss Voss. Howard Klein here. Mr. Stallone's aide. Mr. Stallone wishes a private discussion this morning if feasible." A spark of optimism. Maybe Stallone would advocate sense. "Halt this madness before escalation. Inform him I'll connect wherever suits." Half an hour later, Dana occupied a secluded eating area at the Bellagio, awaiting as Sylvester Stallone precisely mixed additive into his brew. The performer appeared fatigued, the creases on his visage more pronounced than the night prior. "Thanks for this meeting," he uttered at last. "Certainly I'm aiming for a solution to ease this matter." Stallone mixed his brew gradually, considering his terms. "Arnold won't retreat. You recognize that, correct? He's various traits, but never one to yield, even when yielding makes sense." A faint grin crossed Stallone's features, particularly then. Dana inclined a head. "Mr. Stallone. Sly. This display is explosive. Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal aren't actors feigning combat. They're valid combat specialists who turn to performing. Massive distinction. You believe I'm unaware?" Stallone's tone sharpened now. "I've collaborated with actual combatants throughout my career. I grasp the gap between screen combat and reality." "Then why proceed? Stallone averted his gaze, settling on the Las Vegas horizon, seen through the pain. Have you ever positioned at a ledge's brink, knowing not to leap yet drawn nearer regardless? Dana paused, detecting further content. Arnold and I, he proceeded, we've devoted our existences to surpassing ordinary. Crafting these symbols, these unattainable images of power. He tasted his brew. Eventually, the boundary fades. You commence accepting your own legend, and this display will what? Sharpen that boundary. Stallone's grin was melancholic. At our stage, sharpness is precious. He aligned, back straightening. I'm not present to terminate. I'm present to request guidelines, limits that prevent this from turning violent. Dana's spirit dropped. She had sought a partner in dismantling the occasion, not organizing it. What do you suggest? 3 segments, 2 minutes apiece. Minimal impact solely. No hits above the neck for those past 70. He stated the final with ironic self-mockery that didn't touch his gaze. More presentation than rivalry. And you assume Norris and Seagal will consent? They're experts. If we proceed with regard instead of arrogance, they'll compromise. Dana remained skeptical, but it surpassed void. I'll prepare the outline. But sly, she held his gaze squarely. Proceed cautiously. This isn't Rocky Part 6. No outline guarantees the disadvantaged succeeds. A flash crossed his eyes. Perhaps clarity or acceptance. There never truly was, he murmured. On the other side of the city, in a secluded training hall hidden behind a plain shopfront, Chuck Norris finished his dawn routine. At 84, his actions stayed exact, each form transitioning seamlessly into the following with the balance of lifelong dedication. Close by, Steven Seagal remained in contemplation, his respiration steady and profound. Chuck ended the pattern and inclined toward the basic altar at the room's front. Only afterward did he note their guest. Mr. Klein, he remarked, taking a cloth. What leads Stallone's aide here? Howard Klein positioned uneasily at the entry, evidently uneasy in the stark practice area. Mr. Norris, Mr. Seagal, I've delivered a suggestion for tonight's display. From Stallone or Schwarzenegger? Chuck questioned, though his manner implied awareness from Mr. Stallone. He's recommending some boundaries to keep the occasion managed. Seagal lifted his lids, his reflection evidently done. Allow me to predict he desires to convert it into a show. Klein adjusted his balance. He aims to avoid needless injury. Chuck took the packet Klein presented, unfolding it cautiously. His eyes reviewed the suggested guidelines, constrained segments, limited zones, safety gear. Convey to Mr. Stallone we value his worries, Chuck stated, refolding the sheet. But boundaries aren't required. Klein blinked. Pardon? We won't deliver risky blows or seek to harm anyone, Chuck clarified evenly. That's never our method. Restraint originates internally, not from outer regulations. But Mr. Schwarzenegger anticipates. What Arnold anticipates and what transpires might vary. Seagal inserted, standing smoothly despite his size. That's frequently the initial teaching. Klein glanced between them, obviously confused. So you're declining the conditions. We're indicating they're superfluous. Chuck adjusted mildly. Authentic martial arts isn't focused on causing harm. It's about attaining balance even amid dispute. Klein agreed hesitantly, retreating to the exit. I'll relay your note. Once he departed, Seagal faced Chuck. They remain uncomprehending. Indeed, Chuck concurred. But comprehension seldom precedes involvement. At the same time, in a cutting-edge fitness center booked solely for him, Arnold Schwarzenegger pushed through an intense session. Despite his years, his vigor stayed impressive, a proof to the rigid control that marked his muscle-building path. Perspiration streamed down his features as he finished another round of loaded strikes, the tension straps tightening with every stretch. Stronger, he ordered his coach, a past heavy division pugilist who understood not to debate. Increased tension. The coach modified the tools silently, sharing a worried look with Arnold's medic, who oversaw the activity from close. Governor, maybe a reduction phase, the medic proposed cautiously. You've maintained this almost 2 hours. No reduction time, Arnold answered amid strong breaths. Tonight concerns demonstrating a point. With respect, sir, demonstrating what? You're among the most accomplished individuals, a symbol in several domains. What might you... That it was always authentic, Arnold cut in, gaze locked on his image in the reflector. That the power was genuine is genuine. The medic quieted, acknowledging argument's uselessness. In all his time caring for stars, competitors, and officials, he had never met determination like Schwarzenegger's. The identical drive that changed an Austrian rural youth into 7-time Mr. Olympia, then a film star, then a leader. Arnold ended the round with a shout of strain, then positioned, inhaling deeply, examining his image. The form had altered over time, gentler in areas, denser in others, but the structure of excellence stayed apparent underneath. When I reached America, he uttered abruptly, still speaking to his image. They claimed my dialect was too heavy, my form too odd, my title hard to say. His gaze tightened. I disproved them. Each occasion. Tonight differs not. His device hummed. Klein updating on the session with Norris and Seagal. Arnold heard, his look darkening. They rejected the guidelines. All right, their error. He terminated the connection suddenly. No further tension work. Prepare the practice equipment. His coach shared another anxious glance with the medic. Sir, complete contact practice may not suit at this point. Did I request guidance? Arnold's tone carried the sharpness that had intimidated filmmakers, rivals in office, and commerce opponents. Practice gear immediately. As setups heightened all day, Dana positioned at the core of a press storm. Every broadcaster had arrived in Vegas, altering the Legends Arena from a refined site into the hub of an international display. Reporters packed the entrance. Guards operated extended hours and digital networks flared with guesses, images, and intense discussions on the impending showcase. By early afternoon, Dana got verification. The occurrence had turned into the Globe's top discussed subject, exceeding votes, disputes, and star controversies. What started as a rash dare had changed into a societal instance, a fusion of periods, ideas, and views on power that echoed well past amusement. As dusk neared, she positioned in the vacant venue, picturing the disorder soon to occupy it. Her device rang once more. This instance Chuck Norris directly. Miss Voss. His steady tone contrasted sharply with the surrounding madness. I wish to inquire about you directly. The thoughtfulness surprised her. I'm coping, she responded truthfully. I realize this deviates from your venue's intended launch, mildly stated. A soft laugh. Existence seldom adheres to our outlines. The matter is our adjustment to surprises. Dana expressed the concern she'd concealed professionally. Individuals might suffer harm tonight. Images harmed, histories stained. Possibly, Chuck admitted, or possibly a beneficial insight could arise. At what expense? Reality frequently demands payment, he remarked plainly, but its worth surpasses the cost. After ending, Dana remained solitary in the broad area, his terms resounding. Beyond, the sun descended. In lodging spaces and private fitness areas throughout Las Vegas, 4 icons readied for a meeting. None foresaw a day prior. The fusion was no longer nearing. It was present. 7 p.m. changed the Legends Arena into a basic essence. Absent was the refined feel of the debut evening, substituted by a charged setting that sparked with eagerness. Every position occupied soon after access opened. Overflow areas brimmed. Safety officials lingered anxiously, assessing capacity against the pressing throng from every direction. Centrally, the display area had been adjusted, expanded with enhanced beams and custom surfaces that provided safeguard without restricting action. 4 access points built, 1 per direction, each with unique design, all crafted for peak dramatic effect. Dana Voss positioned in the control area, surveying everything, scarcely identifying her own work. What was designed as a graceful exhibit of combat styles had altered into a contemporary fighter spectacle. Broadcast teams from all primary channels vied for spots. Stars occupied the leading rows. Mobiles prepared to seize what many termed the century's clash. 5 minutes to transmission, the operations head declared. Arrival start in 3. Dana braced. Sound peaks maxed. This gathering is extreme. Indeed, the din had turned nearly solid. A barrier of noise from thousands of tones, all pulsing with identical heated thrill. Dana had managed athletic occasions, performances, even civic gatherings. But never such vigor. It pushed against the enclosure's pain, seeking outlet. Access 1 prepared, the signal arrived. Arnold set. Dana fortified herself. Initiate the order. The venue beams darkened strikingly, immersing the area in brief shadow. The assembly's shout strengthened, then turned to a shared inhale as the opening beats of Welcome to the Jungle blasted via audio. Beams cut the gloom, meeting at the northern axis, where flames burst in managed explosions. Arnold Schwarzenegger appeared amid created mist, limbs lifted victoriously. At 77, clad in a close athletic top that highlighted his still notable build, he demanded focus through pure dominance. The assembly detonated, repeating his title as he advanced to the area with the assured step that defined endless film scenes. Access 2 prepared. The signal crackled. Stallone set. The tunes changed to the distinct start of Eye of the Tiger. The Eastern Access lit as Sylvester Stallone emerged, more reserved than his associate, but equally compelling. Where Arnold engaged the masses, Stallone appeared centered within. His look one of held force as he neared the area. The pair converged at the core, gripping palms in a unity display that sparked another surge of shouts. Arnold drew near, uttering something that prompted Stallone's stern nod. Accesses 3 and 4 prepared, the operations head declared. Norris and Seagal set. Dana delayed, abruptly conscious of the impending contrast. Continue. The tunes and flames ceased suddenly. Quiet fell, interrupted solely by the puzzled hum of the masses. Then, sans announcement or declaration, the Southern Access softly brightened. Chuck Norris advanced, attired in a plain black uniform with a crimson band, a subtle reference to his Walker, Texas Ranger period. No audio backing, no effects, merely the calculated pace of a man who refined controlled action over a lifetime. From the Western Access, Steven Seagal appeared concurrently, his standard Aikido garb flowing with each move. Like Chuck, he advanced sans drama, his concentration fully inward. The masses' response altered, hesitant initially, then rising into a distinct form of regard. Not the wild thrill that met Arnold and Stallone, but a profounder, nearly sacred acknowledgement. Thousands of mobiles elevated further, seizing the instant when Flair encountered restraint. The four converged at the area's center. The difference was instant and clear. Arnold and Stallone projecting vigor outward, engaging the lenses while Chuck and Seagal stayed contained, their essence marked by calm overshow. Ladies and gentlemen, the presenter's tone echoed through the venue. Welcome to the most unique display in fighting history. The masses shouted approval as the four symbols faced off, the upper lenses capturing each detail of their meeting for the vast screens overhead. In the northern spot, the Austrian Oak, the Terminator, the 7-time Mr. Olympia, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold elevated both limbs, rotating fully to note the booming reply. And his associate, the Italian stallion, the creator and lead of the Rocky and Rambo series, Sylvester Stallone. Stallone raised a fist upward, his features fixed in the resolved look that marked his brand over 50 years of films. In the southern spot, 8-time global karate title holder, creator of the Chun-Kuk-Do combat system and lead in Walker, Texas Ranger, Chuck Norris. Chuck gestured once, his look peaceful amid the surrounding uproar, and his associate 7th-level black belt in Aikido, combat trainer to celebrities and film symbol Steven Seagal. Seagal held still, noting the presentation with merely a faint head tilt as the guidelines were detailed. 3 segments display setup, scores over elimination. Dana observed the four closely. Arnold's assurance appeared to emit outward, his posture broad and commanding. Beside him, Stallone's vigor was more directed, his gaze continually evaluating, reviewing. But it was the opposing calm of Chuck and Seagal that captured her focus, the silent surety in their stance, the spareness in their tiniest actions. The official summoned them centrally for last directions. Arnold inclined ahead, grinning widely for the records. Like former times, yeah. Predator against Delta Force. Chuck's grin was courteous but held back. Films aren't fact, Arnold. Neither is the training hall, Arnold replied. No outline tonight, friend. There's never been an outline, Seagal murmured, his first open words that night. That's the essence. The official parted them, indicating the display's start. The masses silenced briefly, jointly pausing breath as the four symbols assumed places. Arnold and Stallone discussed shortly, then took combat poses any film enthusiast would identify, striking, record-prepared stances meant to highlight physical form. Opposite, Chuck and Seagal adopted classic positions. Chuck's palms elevated in the unique defense of his personal Chun-Kuk-Do method. Seagal's open hand stretched in Aikido's accepting stance. The contrast couldn't be sharper. The signal sounded. Arnold advanced first, proceeding with the bold walk that shaped his screen character. He released a sequence of amplified strikes, forceful but obvious, intended to appear striking rather than land swiftly. Chuck didn't retaliate. He just wasn't present when the strikes reached. His shift so delicate and sparing that it seemed Arnold targeted fixed points. No extra action, no striking dodge, just accurate small changes that left Arnold hitting void. The masses' response moved from thrill to puzzlement. This wasn't the grand clash they expected. At the same time, Stallone clashed with Seagal, trying a mix of swings and rising blows that could seem crushing with proper angle and cuts. Seagal answered with Aikido's core idea, merging with the assault over resisting it outright. He shifted with Stallone's vigor, rerouting over halting, leading over ceasing. The outcome was odd to see. Stallone delivering standard film strikes while Seagal appeared to glide around them like fluid past rock. "What's occurring?" Dana overheard a close observer question. "They're not responding." Arnold, irritation visibly mounting, quickened his rate. His actions became less managed, more urgent for connection. Chuck persisted in dodging with least effort, never replying, never assaulting, just showing the gap between show and training. The pattern lasted nearly a minute. Arnold and Stallone assaulting with rising force, Chuck and Seagal countering each move sans visible strain. The masses' puzzlement grew. Some started jeering at the absence of striking involvement, others observing with emerging regard for the unfolding instruction. Arnold, inhaling deeply now, retreated in annoyance. "Is this your idea of combat?" He shouted loud for nearby rows to catch, evading. Chuck's look stayed steady. "Preserving energy is the primary rule, Governor. Why use power when unnecessary?" The answer sparked dispersed laughs, aggravating Arnold more. He surged ahead again, this time with a wide swing bearing his full mass. A hit that, if landed, could have ended the display instantly. Chuck moved aside with such accuracy that Arnold's drive propelled him onward. Unbalanced and exposed. For the first time, Chuck started contact, not a blow, but a soft reroute that employed Arnold's own vigor against him. The ex-leader stumbled, almost dropping before steadying on the barriers. The masses inhaled. Across the area, Seagal had taken a comparable method with Stallone, taking in and rerouting each assault with smooth simplicity. Stallone, more perceptive than his ally, had begun adjusting his actions, becoming more careful, more calculated. As insight emerged in his gaze, the initial segment closed with a signal that appeared to surprise all. Arnold went back to his area, features red from strain and what resembled confusion. Stallone united, forehead creased in thought. "They're ridiculing us," Arnold whispered, audible for close records. "No," Stallone answered reflectively. "They're instructing us." Opposite the area, Chuck and Seagal held calm talk, neither exhausted nor worried. Their calm sharply opposed Arnold's restless steps and Stallone's sharp concentration. Dana drew nearer to her screen, noting the change in the venue's vigor. What started as show was shifting into something unforeseen, a direct exhibit of the distinction between surface and core, between displaying power and living it. The signal for segment 2 rang. This occasion, Stallone advanced initially, his method clearly altered. Absent were the broad film strikes substituted by tighter, more effective actions. He had devoted years collaborating with pro boxers for his Rocky works, and that true insight now appeared as he clashed with Seagal, with increased regard and consciousness. Seagal gestured faintly, noting the change. Their interaction grew more seamless, more real. Still a display, but now filled with shared acknowledgement. When Seagal performed an Aikido move that softly reversed Stallone's vigor against him, the performer adapted skillfully, recovering his position with fresh modesty in his look. Arnold, though, drew a distinct insight from the first segment. His assaults on Chuck turned more forceful, more resolved, as if he could surpass method with pure determination. He released a storm of strong hits, each given with the complete belief of a man used to shaping reality to his view. Chuck's reply held steady. Least power, most effectiveness. He didn't stop Arnold's assaults. He ensured they met nothing solid. Like attempting to strike a shade, Arnold discovered himself increasingly drained while his rival stayed energized and balanced. Midway in the segment, annoyance overtook plan. Arnold surged ahead with a yell, trying to seize Chuck outright. It marked the first genuine battle aim, crossing from display to clash. Chuck's reply was prompt but controlled. As Arnold rushed, Chuck performed a basic move, rerouting Arnold's significant drive and permitting nature to finish what method initiated. The ex-leader discovered himself aloft suddenly, then prone on the surface, the collision expelling air from his chest in a clear exhale that the audio seized flawlessly. The venue silenced. Chuck positioned over Arnold, not in victory but prepared, ready to aid if welcomed. For an extended instant, Arnold stayed down, dazed more by the simplicity of his loss than the drop. When he eventually spoke, his tone held an unfamiliar shake. How did that happen?" Chuck offered a palm. 50 years of training, not 50 years of simulating. The terms given sans spite but with direct truth resounded through the quiet venue. Arnold delayed, then took the provided palm, permitting Chuck to aid his rise. Something changed then, not solely in Arnold, but in the whole occasion's mood. The display had surpassed amusement and turned into teaching. Thousands observed, devices ignored in their grips as self-importance met ability and discovered itself lacking. The rest of the second segment proceeded with altered vigor. Stallone persisted in his more skilled interaction with Seagal, each exchange disclosing the performer's true admiration for combat arts under his cinema image. Arnold, still rattled, neared Chuck with fresh care, his actions more restrained if not more successful. By the concluding segment, the display had fully shifted. What began as a show had become a workshop for men at varied stages on the range, between enactment and training, between seeming powerful and being powerful. Arnold, his famed assurance clearly reduced, now posed queries amid exchanges. Why is this effective? How do you create force without signaling? His interest surpassing his resolve, Chuck replied patiently, showing basics over methods, bases over embellishments. Stallone and Seagal had formed a similar pattern. The performers' enduring interest in combat arts, finding voice in their growing joint presentation. When Seagal performed a detailed joint hold that could have caused pain, Stallone signaled acknowledgement, then requested the action repeated, slower. As the last signal neared, Dana realized she observed something unmatched. Not the madness she dreaded, but a communal alignment between surface and fact, between flair and content. The final minute proceeded as a true display over a contest. All four now collaborating to show varied methods to action, force, and restraint. The masses, originally let down by the lack of grand struggle, had turned attentive, then grateful, then actively involved in the developing teaching. When the concluding signal rang, there was no champion to declare, no success to announce. Instead, all four converged at the core, the classic incline of regard among combat artists, substituting the elevated limbs of a winner. Arnold uttered first, his tone resounding clearly via the venue's audio. I've gained an important insight tonight. The masses quieted, flashes strengthening. My whole existence I've linked power to being the most robust, the largest, the mightiest. He rested a palm on Chuck's back. Tonight I learned that real power isn't about scale or displays of might. It's about restraint, effectiveness, and modesty. The confession, surprising and sincere, sparked a surge of cheers that grew gradually, then filled the whole venue. Not the wild shouts of violent sport, but the deeper regard for seeing true development. Stallone agreed with a gesture. In my works, I've always aimed to demonstrate that spirit outweighs build. Tonight, I recalled that insight outweighs method. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Chuck. The four elevated their palms jointly, the action erasing rivalry's splits and substituting with shared regard. The masses stood in applause, not for win or loss, but for the scarcer sight of resolve giving way to insight. As they left the area, Dana observed from her station. Her early worries substituted by emerging awareness. What might have been catastrophe had instead turned into the most precious form of amusement, the type that leaves viewers not merely entertained, but informed. The Legends Arena had fulfilled its commitment. Ultimately, though not as anyone predicted, it had presented real icons not in their ability to rule, but in their readiness to develop. Even at 77, even at 84, the key struggles weren't against others. They were against the self. The after-display gathering hummed with a vibe unlike any Dana had known in 2 decades of show production. Rather than the usual post-event mood, loud tunes, abundant drinks, stage companionship, the top-floor space had taken a feel of a close workshop. Sector leaders, stars, and competitors assembled in small groups, their talks subdued and directed. At the core stood Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal, encircled by an engaged group as they detailed ideas shown in the display. Absent was the show. Instead, a sincere sharing of insight. Observe the foot placement, Chuck clarified, showing a delicate balance shift that barely altered his form yet fully changed his stability. Force doesn't start in the limbs or even the center. It originates from the base upward. The watching group encompassed title combatants, film action planners, and several emerging performers noted for their adventure parts, all attending with the concentrated focus of learners over the courteous curiosity of stars. Seagal, usually reserved in group settings, had discovered his niche too. Many combat methods start by instructing assault. He told his own attentive group, Aikido starts by instructing balance. Only upon grasping balance can you truly grasp dispute. Dana moved through the space holding a fizzy drink, still handling the night's surprising path. The display had been transmitted worldwide, shattering viewer counts on channels. But the standards that typically marked success, viewer numbers, digital involvement, income creation, appeared empty gauges of what had really happened. What an evening. She pivoted to discover Sylvester Stallone nearby. His look reflective as he scanned the area. The performer had switched to relaxed night attire. But something deeper had changed in his manner. A burden removed, a teaching absorbed. Not as I predicted, Dana conceded. The finest teachings seldom are. Stallone tasted his beverage. You know, I've devoted 50 years portraying combatants in films, encircled myself with actual title holders, taken in their methods, their tales, their outlook, believed I comprehended it. He gestured negatively. Tonight revealed the divide between awareness and insight. Where's Arnold? Dana inquired, abruptly noting the ex-leader's resounding tone was notably missing. Stallone's look grew layered. Processing a bit, this affected him uniquely. Across the space, in a secluded nook partly hidden by ornamental plants, Arnold Schwarzenegger positioned alone, gazing at his image in the tall panes. The Las Vegas horizon gleamed beyond, but his attention stayed internal. He detected rather than heard Chuck Norris near. The combat expert advanced with the identical quiet effectiveness in social environments as in battle. Care if I sit? Chuck questioned. Arnold motioned to the next seat sans words. For an instant, the pair remained quiet, both observing the gathering's image in the dim pane. I owe you regret, Arnold uttered eventually. Chuck gestured negatively. You might owe yourself one. The reply prompted a wry grin on Arnold's features. Ever the instructor, ever the learner. Chuck adjusted softly. That's the key most overlook. The instant you think you've conquered something is the instant you cease advancing in it. Arnold shifted from the pane, examining Chuck squarely. In the faint glow, years showed more on both. The creases deeper. The backs maybe not as aligned as in their peak. But while Arnold treated his years as a foe to overcome, Chuck appeared to have blended it as merely another stage of progress. You know, Arnold remarked, I've devoted my existence to being the most powerful in any setting. Muscle-building films, government always showing might, surety, power. It turns into your core. What folks anticipate, what you demand from yourself. Chuck agreed, comprehension in his gaze. The picture starts to control the individual. Precisely. And tonight Arnold's tone faded, the admission tough for a man shaped by assurance. Tonight the picture fractured somewhat. And that seems like defeat. Arnold's astonishment was clear. How did you? I've traveled this route longer, Arnold. Encountered identical trials. The distinction is my preparation instructed me early that power sans modesty turns into flaw. Arnold pondered this, rotating his vacant vessel between large palms. In my realm, displaying flaw was inexcusable. You either ruled or were ruled. No balance. That's ego's deception. Chuck stated, true power resides exactly in balance, in equilibrium, restraint, and the insight to recognize when to apply might and when to hold it. Something eased in Arnold's look, an initial sign of embrace. 50 years as the Terminator, he remarked with ironic self-humor. Tough pattern to alter. The matter isn't altering it, Chuck answered. It's expanding past it. Your power is authentic, Arnold. Your control, your drive, these aren't deceptions. They merely require equilibrium with consciousness and modesty. Arnold agreed gradually. The insight in Chuck's terms piercing layers of self built over years. I arrived to demonstrate a point, he conceded. Instead, I gained a point. Unsure which holds more worth? The second, Chuck remarked plainly. Always the second. Across the gathering, Steven Seagal had united with Dana and Stallone, the trio observing the soft exchange developing in the nook. Will he recover? Dana questioned. Better than recover, Seagal answered. Arnold is facing what every combat artist must eventually confront. The awareness that genuine expertise starts with ego's release appears opposite to instinct. Dana noted. Most deep realities are, Seagal remarked. The firmest tree in the gale isn't the rigid one. It's the one that understands bending. Stallone agreed, his director's view seizing the scene across the space. Two symbols from separate realms discovering shared base in the common tongue of advancement and self-awareness. You know, he remarked thoughtfully, I've built a path portraying underdogs who succeed via spirit and resolve. Narratives about regular men uncovering remarkable power. He motioned toward Chuck and Arnold. But perhaps the more compelling narrative is about remarkable men uncovering regular insight. Dana pondered this. the organizer in her already imagining a varied project, not the show she initially designed, but something subtler, more real. Would viewers engage? She pondered aloud. In a sphere fixated on victors and defeated, would folks value a tale about surpassing the idea of victory? The appropriate viewers would, Stallone answered. Those prepared for the content. As the night advanced, the four icons eventually gathered at the gathering's core. What started as distinct talks combined into a single sharing, limits dissolving as viewpoints blended. Arnold and Stallone contributed views from their film methods to battle. Chuck and Seagal provided basics from their enduring combat arts practice. Those lucky to see the spontaneous discussion witnessed something scarce. Four men who had shaped varied facets of power for eras, now jointly reshaping it before them, not as rule or show, but as fusion of contrasting elements, might and control, assurance and modesty, enactment and reality. As midnight neared, the gathering lessened, attendees leaving with reflective looks over the thrilled fatigue common to amusement occasions. Dana discovered herself solitary on the top balcony. The chill arid breeze a pleasant break after hours of tension. Miss Voss. She pivoted to discover all four icons nearing, a cohesion in their action absent 24 hours before. Gentlemen, she noted, I trust the night fulfilled your hopes. Surpassed them, Chuck answered. Altered them, Arnold revised, gaining approving gestures from the rest. We've discussed, Stallone remarked. Regarding your venue's future, Dana lifted a brow. Interest heightened. What occurred tonight wasn't merely a display, Seagal clarified. It was a showing of ideas that exceed amusement. Ideas about true power, about the link between surface and core. Ideas worth distributing, Chuck supplemented. Arnold advanced, his typical assurance now softened with fresh modesty. We're suggesting a sequence, not rivalries, learning, each contributing our distinct view. Film combat against actual martial arts, flair against content, not as conflict but as enhancement. A conversation across fields, Stallone detailed. Something that respects both amusement's show and tradition's insight. Dana weighed the suggestion, her thoughts speeding with options. The Legends Arena was designed as a site for show, for enactment, for power's outer display. What they proposed marked a basic change toward significance, toward profundity, toward the inner base on which all genuine power rested. It would involve risk, she uttered finally. Distinct from market norms, the largest successes stem from the largest risks, Chuck answered. Another idea worth instructing. As the four awaited her reply, Dana stared at the Las Vegas horizon, a metropolis constructed on deception, abruptly hosting a talk on reality. The contradiction wasn't overlooked. Tomorrow, she resolved. Let's convene tomorrow and outline the structure. Tonight was merely the start. The four icons agreed in unity, contentment clear in their looks. As they prepared to depart, Arnold halted, glancing back at Dana with fresh sharpness in his gaze. You know, he remarked, I arrived believing power meant enforcing my intent. I'm departing grasping it's about exceeding it. He grinned. Not the record-prepared smile of his film years, but something sincerer. That's a story turn even I didn't predict. As they left, Dana stayed on the balcony, observing the city's glows merge into a pattern of hue and potential. The Legends Arena would truly become a display of power, but not the type that shouted for notice or required praise. Instead, the silent power that altered existences via model overshow. The power that recognized when to hold firm and when to give. The power that saw learning as an ongoing journey over a reached goal. The authentic power of icons. Dawn rays spread over the training surface of the private hall Chuck Norris had secured for the week. The area was intentionally stark. Smooth timber floors, blank pale walls, and a modest altar at the front where one flame glowed. No emblems, no backers, no interruptions. Just room for action and thought. Chuck proceeded through his dawn routine with the identical accuracy he had shown for 60 years. At 84, each form transitioned into the next with balanced flow. Not youth's burst of might, but something profounder, refined via decades of steady training. Nearby, Steven Seagal positioned in reflection, his breathing controlled and faint. Though externally static, his consciousness covered the whole space, an ability sharpened through years of Aikido preparation that instructed presence as all methods base. The hall entrance opened. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone arrived, clothed in basic exercise gear over the labeled sportswear they usually chose. They advanced with a varied quality than 48 hours prior, more aware, less staged, as if the prior night's display had begun a readjustment of their bond with their forms. Chuck finished his routine, inclining respectfully to the altar before turning to note the arrivals. "Precisely on schedule," he remarked with soft endorsement. "We indicated 7, Arnold answered. "In my existence, control begins with timeliness." Chuck agreed, acknowledging the validity in this. Despite varied routes, specific basics linked all 4, control primary. Before starting, Stallone remarked, "I wish to express gratitude to you both. Last night could have unfolded differently." "It nearly did," Seagal noted, lifting his lids and rising smoothly from his reflection pose. "Ego is a strong foe." "Inform me," Arnold concurred, a wry grin admitting how near he came to letting resolve overpower insight. "I've devoted a lifetime nurturing mine." "We all have in varied manners," Chuck remarked. "The distinction isn't possessing ego or lacking it. It's whether you direct your ego or it directs you." The 4 advanced to the training surface's center, creating a small ring. Outside, Las Vegas already pulsed with motion, the endless mechanism of amusement and trade that shaped the metropolis. But inside the hall's plain barriers, a distinct vigor ruled, thoughtful, directed, real. So Arnold remarked, his dialect bold but his manner genuine. "We are learners today, and instructors," Chuck adjusted softly. "Each contributes insight the others miss. Today concerns sharing, not ranking." For the following 2 hours, the hall turned into a lab of action and ideas. Chuck and Seagal showed basic ideas from their respective fields. Chuck's focus on effective hits from his karate roots, Seagal's emphasis on merging and rerouting ki to aikido. Arnold and Stallone shared views from their film methods: how to make action visible on record, how to express effect sans harm, how to narrate via physical motion. What arose wasn't rivalry but partnership. 4 varied routes to expertise finding sudden overlap. As they proceeded, the early unease faded, substituted by the innate fellowship of experts united by shared aim despite differing approaches. "The record demands amplification," Stallone clarified, showing how a film strike extends farther than a real one, but the base stays identical, force originating from the center, passing via position. While actual battle requires effectiveness, Chuck supplemented, displaying how a true hit follows a briefer route, varied uses of the same base. By mid-morning, moisture shone on all 4, proof of involvement over show. When they eventually halted, seating on the hall surface, a clear sense of dissolved barriers existed. "I reflected on last night," Arnold remarked, his tone unusually thoughtful about its revelations. The others paused, offering space for his thoughts. "My entire existence I've connected power to rule, being the largest, the most robust, the most accomplished." He gazed at his palms, still mighty but now etched with years' marks. "But what I observed in you 2 was distinct. Power as fusion over enforcement. The contradiction of genuine might." Seagal agreed. "The more urgently you seize it, the more surely it escapes." A tap at the hall entrance disrupted their talk. Dana Voss arrived holding a polished folder and appearing far more refreshed than the night before. "Gentlemen," she greeted. "Hope no interruption?" "Ideal moment," Arnold confirmed. "We were philosophizing." Dana grinned, seating at the training zone's edge. "That's linked to my visit." She revealed the folder, displaying idea sketches for a fresh initiative where the initial Legends Arena ads stressed show, dramatic beams, fierce looks. The language of clash, these fresh ideas proposed something different. Balance over opposition, insight over rule. Following last night, she clarified, I couldn't cease considering what happened, not solely the display but its meaning. The path from self-importance to fusion, from outer approval to inner reality. She displayed the items before them. "I'm suggesting a sequence named Strength Beyond Strength. Not rivalries, but discussions. Not on who's most powerful, but on power's true meaning across varied fields and existences." The 4 examined the ideas with diverse looks. Arnold with business evaluation, Stallone with story regard, Chuck and Seagal with calculated thought of aim and effect. "The opening part would highlight you 4, Dana continued, but it would grow to encompass other voices, competitors, thinkers, spiritual guides, daily champions, all examining the same core query. What is true power, and how do we develop it in a sphere fixated on its surface features? Quiet followed her display, each processing the suggestion via his distinct experience filter. "It's hazardous," Stallone noted eventually. "Not the standard action material viewers anticipate from us. The largest advancement occurs at comfort's boundary," Chuck countered. For viewers and experts alike, Arnold examined the idea visuals. His look reflective, You know, upon arriving in America, I held one goal: to be the top, the largest, the most powerful. It was fully outer. Awards, ranks, earnings, ballots. He gazed up, meeting each gaze sequentially. What if the following part concerned something else? About heritage, past success, about sharing over gaining? Seagal agreed, transmitting insight over gathering honors. So Dana uttered eventually, "Are you participating?" The four shared looks, silent comprehension exchanging. Chuck uttered first, his tone carrying the quiet command that marked his public image for years. With one stipulation, he specified, "This can't focus on individuals. It must focus on ideas." "Concurred," Dana remarked instantly. "The emphasis is the content, not the deliverers." "Then I'm participating," Chuck affirmed. "As am I," Seagal supplemented. Stallone gestured agreement. "Include me." All attention shifted to Arnold, who had grown unusually silent. The ex-leader positioned with palms joined, his look thoughtful. "Arnold," Dana urged softly. "I'm considering Chuck's words from yesterday." Arnold answered, 50 years of training, not 50 years of simulating." He gazed up, his look direct and free of usual staged quality. "I've devoted my existence being Arnold Schwarzenegger. The image, the mark, the icon. Maybe time to uncover who I truly am under that." The openness in his confession formed a brief quiet in the space. Four men and one woman, linked not by Hollywood's typical measures but by the rarer element of true presence. "That," Chuck murmured, "is where genuine power starts." The afternoon glow passed through the hall's upper panes, casting soft brightness over the training surface. As they settled details for the fresh initiative, the talk proceeded with surprising simplicity across once firm limits. Arnold's business vision enhanced Stallone's narrative skills. Chuck's teaching background balanced Seagal's profound depth. Dana's production knowledge merged these varied parts into workable form. What arose was not merely an idea for amusement, but a structure for change, a link between the staged power that shaped their paths and the real power that would shape their heritages. 3 months on, the Legends Arena presented the debut of Strength Beyond Strength. Not a rivalry, not a record, but a captured discussion. The setup was misleadingly basic. 4 icons from varied traditions sharing learned insights on real might through years of training, enactment, and personal change. The crowd differed from standard Las Vegas groups. No noisy celebrations or image-seeking visitors. Instead, seats occupied by experts from diverse areas: combat artists, performers, competitors, instructors, insight seekers, drawn not by fame, but by true wisdom's promise. Dana positioned offstage, observing on a screen as the 4 seated in a loose ring at the core. No stands, no unique beams, no striking openings. Just 4 people ready to discuss sincerely about the path from self-importance to fusion. Chuck started with typical plainness. Power isn't about ruling others. It's about controlling yourself. What ensued was 2 hours of talk that proceeded with astonishing depth and openness. Arnold discussed openly the uncertainty that fueled his endless chase of bodily ideal, his dread that sans awards and focus, he might vanish. Stallone reflected how his famed roles, Rocky and Rambo, embodied aspects of his own battle with feeling undervalued and ignored. Chuck shared how his early combat training stemmed from fear over insight, the wish to avoid vulnerability, to always be the riskiest in the space, and how that drive changed via spiritual training into something more even and kind. Seagal discussed the contradiction central to Aikido, that true power arose not from opposition but from giving, not from claiming the self, but from exceeding it. The crowd attended in focused concentration, seeing not a show but a disclosure. 4 men who had shaped power for eras, now reshaping it before them. When queries arrived, they weren't on film actions or title clashes. They tackled basic human issues. How do you create assurance sans nurturing ego? How do you stay modest sans reducing your abilities? How do you mature gracefully in a society fixated on youth and bodily skill? The replies disclosed not masters with ideal insight, but companions on the route, men who achieved remarkable outer success while grappling with universal inner trials. As the night ended, Dana observed from the sides, conscious she saw something scarce in amusement. Not avoidance, but involvement with existence's deepest queries. Not diversion from fact, but immersion in it. The 4 icons rose jointly, noting the upright cheers, not with celebrities' trained gesture, but with learners' simple incline who grasp the path never concludes. The gaining never stops. Offstage, as they collected items and readied to leave, a moment of silent recognition passed among them. No elaborate addresses, no striking statements, just the quiet awareness of a loop finished. What began as an ego-based dare had shifted into a partnership based on shared regard. "Well," Arnold uttered eventually, "that deviated from my expectations 3 months back." "Existence seldom matches," Chuck answered with a faint grin. "The matter," Seagal supplemented, "is whether we oppose the unforeseen or merge with it, and whether we gain from it." Stallone finished as they separated, each to his own realm, his own route. Something core stayed linked. Not companionship traditionally, but a deeper awareness of common humanity under outer distinctions. Dana stayed, surveying the now vacant venue. What was designed as a shrine to show had disclosed itself as something deeper. A space where sincere talk could thrive, where insight could transfer, where power could redefine. In the calm wake, she grasped that the most precious changes often occurred not in glory or success moments, but in the quiet after when ego's din faded, and truth's soft tone could at last resonate. The true power of icons wasn't in their rulability, but in their evolution readiness to advance, past the images that shaped them, to embrace the insight that exceeded them and to share that path with others still seeking theirs. Ultimately, it wasn't about the strongest. It was about grasping power's true meaning. And in that grasp, all grew stronger. Coming up, 2 additional amazing tales await. Simply select the picture you wish to view, and it will guide you. If this content pleased you, ensure to join. It would support greatly.